Before I get into this video, I just want to say shalom and all praises to the Most High. So what we're going to be looking at today is a place in the New Testament where it's claiming that a Old Testament prophecy was fulfilled during the time period in the New Testament and during an event that occurred in the New Testament. And this is another one of those places in the New Testament to where, we've glossed over it and haven't deeply studied it. And I know I've done this before. So what we're going to do today is, first of all, we're going to start in the New Testament, and then we're going to see what claim it makes, and then we're going to compare that to what the Old Testament has to say and see if it lines up. So let's start off in Matthew chapter 2, verse 11. Matthew chapter 2 and verse 11. It says, "And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, and frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt." Now, right here it says that basically what's happening is that Herod is trying to kill Jesus. That's what this is saying here. And it says that Joseph took Jesus and Mary and then fled into Egypt. Okay, so we're just kind of reading some context here of what we're going to be going over. So let's keep reading. Verse 15. "And was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which is spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt have I called my son." So right here, this is another example of the New Testament actually making a claim and saying that an Old Testament prophecy was fulfilled during a New Testament event. And right here we see that the event is Jesus going into Egypt, and it's equating this Old Testament verse. And what's interesting is that because I already actually have a lesson on this, so you can check that out and I basically go into more detail. But when you go back into the original place where it says, "Out of Egypt have I called my son," that's in Hosea 11 verse 1, and that is actually talking about Israel. Israel is actually the son. So you can check out that video called "Jesus is Not the Son Called Out of Egypt," and basically you're going to see that the New Testament is making a false claim. It's saying that an Old Testament verse was fulfilled during the New Testament time period. And you're going to see this again in what we're going to read now. So verse 16. "Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, In Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and will not be comforted because they are not." So right here we can see, again, it's saying that an Old Testament verse was fulfilled. And specifically it says, which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet. So it's saying that a prophecy in Jeremiah was fulfilled in the New Testament here. And what we're going to see is that this verse, the original verse that is actually in Jeremiah, actually has nothing to do with anything that was written in the New Testament. So let's go and look at that. We're going to go to Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse 15. Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse 15. It says, "Thus saith Yahuwah, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rahel, weeping for her children, refused to be comforted for her children, because they were not." So this is prophecy in the book of Jeremiah that the New Testament is referencing. So what we can see here is that, notice how it's talking about a voice being heard in Ramah. So anytime when you're trying to actually understand Old Testament prophecy, it's a good idea to look at the context of everything that was going on, around that specific prophecy. So when we actually look at the prophecy in Jeremiah, what we're going to see is that this was actually in the time period, around the Babylonian captivity. And what we're going to see is that Ramah does come up in that. So let's go to Jeremiah chapter 39 and verse 1. It says, "In the 9th year of Zedekiah, king of Judah, in the 10th month, came Nebuchadrezzar, king of Babylon, and all his army against Jerusalem, and they besieged it. And in the 11th year of Zedekiah, in the 4th month, the 9th day of the month, the city was broken up." So what we can see here is that Zedekiah, or Babylon, the king of Babylon, is actually coming up against Zedekiah, who at this time is actually the king of Judah. Now, just keep in mind that Israel was actually split up into two kingdoms at this time period. There was the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. Judah consisted of the tribes Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. So that was the kingdom of Judah. All right, so Nebuchadnezzar is coming up against Judah right here. And then notice how it says he came up against Jerusalem and besieged it. So let's skip down to verse 8. "And the Chaldeans burned the king's house and the houses of the people with fire and break down the walls of Jerusalem." So the Chaldeans, they are destroying Judah, The Chaldeans, that's the Babylonians, right? And they are destroying the Judites. Verse 9. "Then Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried away captive into Babylon the remnant of the people that remained in the city, and those that fell away that fell to him with the rest of the people that remained." So they are actually carrying away Judah into the Babylonian captivity. That is what is going on. That is what is going on at the time period of that prophecy in Jeremiah chapter 31. That's what it's actually referencing. And just to further clarify that, let's skip down to Jeremiah chapter 40, verse 1. It says, "The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahuwah after that Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, had let him go from Ramah, when he had taken him, being bound in chains among all that were carried away captive of Jerusalem and Judah, which were carried away captive unto Babylon." So right here, Ramah was one of the places that the Babylonians were actually in, and that is because Ramah is actually a city that was in Judah, more specifically a city that was in Benjamin. So when we go back into Jeremiah chapter 31 with this context of what's going on, now we can actually see what this prophecy is talking about. And what we're going to actually see is that what the New Testament says about, all those kids being killed by Herod, and saying that actually fulfills this prophecy, we're going to see that is actually not true, because it cannot actually fulfill the whole prophecy that is in the book of Jeremiah 31. And let's see why. Jeremiah 31 verse 15. "Thus saith Yahuwah, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rahel weeping for her children, refused to be comforted for her children because they were not." So we already know Ramah is a place that is in Judah. And why is there weeping and all this? Why is she weeping for her children? Because they are actually being carried away to Babylon. Let's keep reading. Verse 16. "Thus saith Yahuwah, refrain thy voice from weeping and thine eyes from tears. For thy work shall be rewarded, saith Yahuwah, and they shall come again from the land of the enemy." So this is lining up perfectly with what we just read. Judah is being taken captive into Babylon. And that right there would cause mourning. But it says that they are actually going to come back from the land of the enemy. So they are going to return back to the land of Israel after their Babylonian captivity is over with. And you can look at history, and that actually did happen. Verse 17, and there is hope in thine end, saith Yahuwah, that thy children shall come again to their own border. So in order to fulfill this prophecy, the children that it's talking about have to go into the land of their enemies and then come back to their own border from the land of their enemies. And when did this happen? This was actually during the Babylonian captivity, okay? This is actually when this was fulfilled. So really, this prophecy was actually already fulfilled. So why is the New Testament basically saying that it was fulfilled during, an event that happened with Herod slaughtering children? Well, let's go back to what we can see let's go back to what we read in Matthew chapter 2. Okay, when we actually look at this right here, the reason why this cannot fulfill this prophecy in Jeremiah 31, besides that prophecy already being fulfilled, is that in here, these children are being slaughtered in their own land. Verse 16, then Herod, Matthew chapter 2, verse 16, then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. So these children are being killed in Judah. So they are not leaving Judah and being taken captives into the land of their enemies, like the prophecy says in Jeremiah 31. Because those children are supposed to, if they're going to return from the land of their enemies, that means they were taken to the land of their enemies first. Okay. And if these children in Matthew chapter 2 are being killed, okay, they just cannot fulfill that part of the prophecy. They cannot return back to their own border if they're just being killed within their own land. So we can see that right here, Matthew chapter 2, verse 18, is just taking one part of the prophecy in Jeremiah 31. It's not talking about the whole prophecy, the full prophecy. So in order to fulfill the full prophecy of Jeremiah 31, the children actually have to go to the land of their enemies and come back to their land, back to Judah. And that does not happen with the children that Herod kills, which shows that there is a contradiction here, and the New Testament is actually making a false claim. So the whole point of this is that the New Testament is just taking Jeremiah out of context and just trying to take that prophecy that was already fulfilled and say that it was fulfilled in the New Testament, and that is false. That Old Testament prophecy was already fulfilled, like we said before, when Judah they actually went into the Babylonian captivity and then came back to their own land after the Babylonian captivity. So whenever we see that the New Testament is claiming to fulfill a prophecy in the Old Testament, like right here, we really should go back to the original Old Testament prophecy and analyze it and look at its original context to see if what the New Testament is claiming is true, just like we did here. And we really need to do this because we're all trying to get a full understanding and understand the truth so we can serve the Most High the way He wants us to. Shalom.